Cincinnati Bengals 24. Buffalo Bills 18. Bengals officially back again.
Yeah, so what is the report from live on location?
Crowd was electric, very well color-coded.
Except you.
I was watching the safety rotation, so I would just yell out, "Got him!" Yell a lot, "Got him!" I could tell when the guys were open. Because being up high, I could see the coverage pretty easily. Yell, "Got him!" And they had him. Both teams. I mean, it was a good back-and-forth battle, Sam. Thought there'd be a lot more points scored after those first couple drives.
It looked it.
Right? It looked like it was going to be the shootout. But it was another vintage Bengals, though. Vintage as in, like, the last year and a half.
Yeah. Of
the Bengals. And the Bills still remain kind of perplexing, right? Like, what's their issue? I don't know. Dalton Kincaid fumbled. I mean, if the Dalton Kincaid fumble in the air.
It's such a freaky play. I don't even know.
Very freaky play. I don't think ball didn't get hit, right?
No, it did. Pratt hit it out, but I don't know if it was deliberate. Like, everyone was on the broadcast, they were sort of saying, because he'd had the crazy interception, was it last week or the week before, the 49ers, he had a couple of crazy plays, and they were like, wow, Pratt's just making these incredible plays. And they showed the replay of it. He kind of comes in as Kincaid is being flipped, and like kind of comes in, hits the ball, and comes out. I'm not sure he was trying to hit the ball specifically as opposed to just coming in to make a hit and a tackle, and it clipped the ball. But either way, that's the play. Like, Jermaine Pratt getting his hand on the ball, knocking it out, and Kincaid, in the course of having a really good game otherwise,
he did,
whilst flipping sunset flip up in the air, loses the ball on the way, and that ends up costing them any chance of a comeback.
Yeah, so, I mean, just from a Bills we'll start from the Bengals perspective, we'll say. Was that their fourth straight win? They're 5-3 now. Bills fall to 5-4. This looks like vintage Bengals the same way it did last week. So now they're sitting on this stretch of last week, take it to the Niners.
Yeah.
One of the best teams in the NFC. This week, take it to the Bills. And I know the Bills' record isn't what it's been over the last couple of years, but that's still a very good Buffalo team. Injuries on the defensive side for Buffalo may be catching up. But again, it was a good back-and-forth battle. It's just 24-18, but Cincinnati – It feels like the Super Bowl stretch run in last year when they kept beating good teams, and it's like, hey, it's fourth down, we're going to go empty, put in Joe Burrow's hands. It's Bills score a touchdown to get within a score, go for two, the smart move to go, to get within 6, 2 incredible throws by Josh Allen on back-to-back plays because they can do that type of thing. And Cincinnati comes back out and Burrow hits Tyler Boyd for a big 32-yarder, and it's just, hey, we're putting the ball in Joe Burrow's hands, letting him make plays, and he delivered in this game.
Yeah, no, he did. Joe Burrow looked spectacular again. Josh Allen played well, but Josh Allen also had the really bad interception where he just sort of underthrows a cover 2 shot and ends up firing it at the corner rather than the wide receiver. So for every one of those, like, literally ridiculous, one of the throws he had to Stephon Diggs, where he managed to get it over a guy that was right there. That's great. Burrow also did some of those amazing throws, but he didn't make the critical mistake. Now, you also have the Kincaid fumble, and
sometimes
that ends up being the difference, right? But
yeah. I looked at Seth when Allen hit that, he hit the cover 2 shot, as you mentioned. I think it was cover 2, but it was over the defender. It was precision to Diggs.
Crazy throw.
And I looked at Seth, I was like, sometimes the difference between a good and bad decision is location, right? It's like the actual accuracy of the ball. Now, the interception that Allen threw, it did look like he had Kincaid open underneath, and he threw it to the sinking corner. It was a legitimate bad decision. But that's kind of like what you get.
And it was inaccurate as well. I mean, even if you decided to make that throw, like, you could potentially have fixed that decision with a pinpoint accurate pass, but this was just way off.
But I guess that's my point. Like, sometimes the decision's the same,
right, and
the accuracy is just the difference between an interception and, like, wow, big time throw. And that's just sometimes what you get with Josh Allen. But yeah, we mentioned in the preview show, he had not been making those turnover worthy plays, right? He had not been doing that a ton.
And it was his only one in this game.
And that was
but in a game like this where you've got 2 quarterbacks playing out of their minds, like, if one makes a big mistake and the other one doesn't, the chances are that's got a pretty good shot of determining the outcome of the game. Now you add in the Kincaid fumble, and you're like, well, it's just too much. Too many drives.
Yeah, every possession matters.
Yeah.
I mean, then The Bengals becoming more well-rounded, right, on offense. As of a couple of weeks ago, it was like, wow, the whole offense is horizontal. You can't connect on anything down the field. Where is T. Higgins? Well, T. Higgins had a huge game. Best he's looked all season. Unbelievable hands on so many passes, but also looked quick, man. He looked really quick and athletic. They got the tight ends involved, the non-Irv Smith tight ends. You got Tanner Hudson and Drew Sample making plays in this game for the Bengals. So that's what I'm saying. Like, they spread the ball around extremely well. It wasn't just the Jamar Chase show, because it didn't have to be. And Burrow even said after the game, hey, when they roll coverage that way, we knew T. Higgins would have some opportunities, and it was Higgins and the tight ends who did, and they came through.
No, they did. Burrow, that offense looked spectacular. Buffalo's pass rush actually had a pretty good day, and it didn't matter because Burrow was playing that well. This is like, you're right, it's like last year when they had this insanely brutal run of games and ended up like knocking them all over, beating all these good teams, and going on the run that they went on. We said a while ago, like, they're in a hole not just because they've lost 3 of their first 4 games, but because if you look at their schedule, it's ugly and it's not easy to win these games, particularly if Burrow isn't 100%. Well, they've won the 2 hardest games on the schedule, arguably, with San Francisco and Buffalo, having already gotten back on track with Arizona and Seattle. Now they've got Houston at home, which is a tougher game than it looked earlier, then at Baltimore, Pittsburgh at home, at Jacksonville. So there's still some rough games coming up, but they've put themselves in a position now where, if they keep playing like this, they're back to being Super Bowl contenders. Yeah,
the stretch last year that we were talking about, they lost to the Browns. They had to go to Pittsburgh, which is always tough. Tennessee, which looked tougher at the time because they were still a good Titans team. They beat Kansas City, the Browns again, Tom Brady's Bucks, and then New England, and then the Buffalo Hamlin game, and then the Ravens. Like that whole stretch, it's like, all right, 6 out of 8 games.
And then once
really
you hit the playoffs, Ravens again, Bills again,
and then the Chiefs, right? and then they finally lost. So that's what I always keep coming back to with Zach Taylor. I don't think Zach Taylor is bringing the same schematic advantage that the Shanahan disciples are necessarily bringing to the table, but Zach Taylor is the head coach. And for the 3rd straight year, the Bengals offense has looked different, changed for whatever reason, right? They went from run heavy to pass heavy. They went from downfield to more horizontal. Like they've evolved over the last 3 years to the personnel, and they've bounced back from adversity. And to me, that's impressive. Now, all that said, of course, we know that the elite quarterback is the driver.
Yeah.
And Joe Burrow is the highest graded quarterback over the last 3 weeks. Top 3 quarterback over the last 3 years. He's the driver. Makes it easier to be the head coach, but I'm still impressed by the whole organization being able to bounce back and right the ship for the 3rd straight year, seemingly.
When he's playing well, Burrow, he is virtually peerless when it comes to play under pressure. I mean, under pressure in that game, he was 10 of 16 for 125 yards and a touchdown, with a passer rating of 107. That's silly. You can't. That's basically unstoppable if a guy's playing like that. If when you pressure him, his play is still at an elite level, there's almost nothing you can do at that point other than keep pace, and that goes out the window when you have a couple of turnovers. So I think, honestly, that ends up being the story. I think both defenses did pretty well, despite the fact that we're talking up the quarterbacks and how amazingly they played. Both defenses did a good job, and in this season of defenses fighting back, this is another pretty good example of that, where, in another season, this might have been a 38-34 type of game, but instead, 18-24 and a couple of turnovers make the difference.
All right, I have to highlight the concern with Von Miller here.
Okay.
Because I saw people saying, hey, Von Miller nowhere to be seen, which was true, but it doesn't mean the entire Bills pass rush wasn't good. As you said, they got pressure. Burrow just made plays. Von Miller on pace. I mean, he's in the middle of by far his worst graded season.
He also basically,
I know he's hurt, playing a part-time role.
Yes,
but he's grading in the 50s, pass rush grade in the 50s. Even when he had his lull with the Broncos, his lull was still all right, you're still a good player, right? You're just going to become a rotational player late in your career. He's got 5 pressures on 76 rushes right now, and it's not productive for Von Miller. It feels like the Bills are going to need him to figure it out, get healthy, whatever it is, and be a big part of their stretch run. It's not the only issue in Buffalo. Like I said, I mean, I think Ben Solak was tweeting out stuff about the Bills have good EPA. They've got all these good metrics. They're 5-4. And on one hand, you just say, okay, the record will revert at some point. On the other hand, it's like, okay, what's missing? Is it really just the turnovers? Is it really you just give this efficient offense the 2 more possessions, let them finish the Dalton Kincaid fumble drive, and don't turn it over in Bengals territory with the cover 2 shot that Josh Allen took, and then it changes the game. Is it that simple? Because I think there's elements of the Dalton Kincaid offense, of him moving around and being a feature part of this, that make it a little bit better. But I don't know. Something a little missing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not – they are pretty banged up at this point, which is like a fairly significant element of all this. I mean, their secondary is pretty wrecked. They've lost linebackers. They lost more of them in this game. They're not what they should have been from a health standpoint. And as much as everyone sort of says, well, you know, nobody likes to – you can't use injuries as an excuse. Everybody deals with injuries. And it's true, they do. But you also can't pretend like they don't impact what you're seeing happening, right? Like who gets injured and when and how severe and how long they're done for and how many guys at one position group were injured absolutely affects these overall big picture outcomes of teams, right? So you can't just pretend it's not a factor. And the Bills have been pretty banged up, particularly like located in the back 7 on that defense. So that's definitely part of it. The offense, I think, showed the last couple of weeks that they can be a little bit more diverse and win in a couple of different ways. And I think they are better. Like Chris talked about it in the broadcast a little bit, when sometimes they go, you know what, we're just not going to bother with the run game. Like a little bit like what the best offense the Washington Commanders seem to be able to deploy is when they just say, drop back Sam Howell and let's just play some backyard football here. And then Howell will create a few scramble plays, and that effectively serves as your run game. I think the Bills, similar, when they just let Josh Allen drop back and sling it, and then Allen can be your run game, whether it's scrambles or whether it's, you know, some design carries here or there. Okay, you want to do that less if he's injured with the shoulder, but still, I think that is still fundamentally their best form of offense. And they did some of that in this game. They did some of that in the last game as well in a couple of different ways. And it worked. I mean, I think I think their offense is still fine, but like the defense is banged up and they're running up against some damn good teams.
That's what I'm always trying to figure out, is that balance with not run-pass balance, but the how much is on Josh Allen's plate balance.
Yeah.
Because these last few weeks where they played, they didn't blow out the Giants and they didn't they've lost to the Patriots, they did give other guys opportunities. They did run the ball a lot more and mix it up. And then it's like, well, maybe you should give Josh Allen more, more of those plays. I think finding that balance is the thing. Also, coming back to the preview show, we now have the Bengals, not just in big games against the Chiefs, but now 2-0 against the Bills, plus the quarter plus in the DeMar Hamlin game where the Bengals have looked really good against this Bills team. Is it a matchup thing as well where, hey, in the playoffs, Buffalo actually wouldn't mind facing Kansas City. They match up pretty well with the Chiefs. They can go head-to-head with the Chiefs.
Right.
But they might not match up really well with Joe Burrow and the Bengals, and that's what's going to determine things come playoff time.
Well, I mean, I think what we said in the preview show, if you look at how the Bengals have done against the best teams in the NFL when everybody is playing well, like Cincinnati might have the strongest punch of anybody out there. I mean, in a season where the Chiefs' offense doesn't seem like the Chiefs' offense, and you know, when we've talked about Buffalo not being quite right, and even Philadelphia haven't quite looked right, like Cincinnati is the one team now that looks back to being where they've been in the past,
yeah.
And that already has a track record of beating the other best teams in the NFL when they match up. I mean, even factoring in the last sort of minute loss to Kansas City in the AFC Championship game, they've still had Kansas City's number when they've run up against them. So you kind of look, I mean, I don't know if there will be a single power rankings in the NFL that has Cincinnati number 1. But I think there's a pretty strong argument that they're the best team in the NFL right now. In
a few weeks, if they keep playing like this, you know, they'll be trending in the right direction.
Sure. I mean, eventually they'll get there if they keep winning these games. Yeah. But like right now, if there was a game next week in a neutral field for the Super Bowl, right, and you had, forget like every team's in the pot, Cincinnati versus any team in the NFL, would they be underdogs versus anybody?
Ravens.
Or should they be underdogs versus anybody?
Ravens, probably.
I don't know.
Potentially. Anyway, Bengals moved to 5-3, Bills 5-4, so they're a game off the lead in the AFC East behind the Dolphins.